Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives.
Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle. We are so happy to have you all here with us today. We have such a great episode. I cannot wait to dive into this. We have the lovely Kristen Bennett, PhD in physical therapy, here with us. I'm going to have her introduce herself a little bit, and we're going to talk about how to really unlock your full potential. And this is something that goes beyond training. We talk a lot about mental aspects of things, but this is an area where I think a lot of times people are not as focused, and there's just so much more that can be accomplished, if they're taking proper care of their body. So Kristen, first, tell us what your check-in word is.
Yeah, well, I am a tiny bit nervous right now, just being on air and camera. It's not my comfort zone. I'm more behind the scenes person, but I'm super excited, and I hope to just provide you guys with some information to help you succeed even further in your progress.
Well, we're really happy to have you.
We never got a check-in word.
She said nervous.
Oh, is that is nervous the check-in word?
Nervous.
Okay, all right, nervous is a good check-in word. All right, I'm sorry. All right.
So, Kristen works with us and works with a lot of our top athletes. Yeah. Like, they come in town here, they see us, they see her, or if they live here, then they see her regularly. So what's been really cool is that she's been able to see so many trends, and she already works with a ton of athletes anyway. But I think that there's so much here that's very specific to what we do in the industry. And of course, she is, I'll let her introduce herself, but she's an IFBB pro herself. So
yes.
First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Kristen. Like she already said, I'm a doctor of physical therapy here in Arizona. I did compete. I haven't competed in a few years, but I did turn pro in wellness the first year that it existed. I had started in figure and made some transitions. So I've gone through the process. I've learned different poses. But now I work with a lot of bikini girls, some wellness girls, and then I also have some of the open bodybuilder and some other guys that I treat, but predominantly been treating a lot of bikini girls. Yeah.
Which is, I think it's really great to be able to see, what are the different issues that are coming up for them. And I know we've talked a lot about it on podcasts, like with Drew, in terms of some of the training aspects and things like that. And, and so what's been so exciting to me is when we've had people come in, to do their training assessments and things like that. And then they'll see you, and it will just unlock a total new level. Like, there'll be something you'll find that we didn't realize was what was holding them back, whether it be in their training or their posing. So let's start by talking. Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry. I love you, and I know that topic is the long pole in the tent, so to speak. But I want people to get to know you, Kristen. Yeah. And so let's talk about you. Like, where'd you grow up? What got you interested in physical therapy? Yeah. Where'd you go to school? All those things. So I want to get to all this stuff, but if we go through all this stuff,
I'm just excited. I'm so excited.
We want to know you.
Yeah,
okay?
I love that. I'm actually an Arizona native, born and raised here. I went to Chaparral High School, and I've always been an athlete, played sports my entire life. But I was a cross-country runner, was running a bunch of cross-country. I had played softball, volleyball, soccer, everything. And then I started really getting into marathon running in high school and fractured my hip. And it was one of those, I originally was going down the path I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. And I was like, dead set, that was my goal. And then I went and saw an orthopedic surgeon after I had that hip injury, and he's like, surgery. And I was like, I'm 17 years old, and you want to put me through surgery on a hip surgery right now? That's just not going to work for me. So then I went to a physical therapist, and they helped me rehab out of that. It took a little bit longer, but we healed back just fine. And I figured out in that moment, I was like, there's another way to help people that doesn't require surgery. And that was like, I knew I wanted to help people. I knew there was another way to do it. And that was like my trigger moment of, this is exactly what I want to do. And proceeded through college. I went to ASU, and I did the Barrett Honors College there. Studied kinesiology, loved the human body, everything about it. I've pushed it in every limits of every sport, and I love challenging it. And I think things now that I wish I would have known then is some of the importance of, you know, the body work and keeping up with not always going go, 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 but like helping my body recover at that time. So I'm excited to talk to people about that today.
Yeah. And thank you for asking that, because
Yeah.
what an amazing turn that you ended up making, and for what an incredible reason, you know, like rather than just like going immediately to let's cut you open, let's see what we can do. And I've seen you help people through a lot of things, you know. There's actually a couple surgeries I've had that I think had I had someone like you guiding me, I probably could have worked my way through it. So it's really cool to hear you say that.
Surgery tends to be one of those like last resort kind of things that we try to, every time you cut the body open, it really does not just affect that one system. The whole body has to recover from that. So it's one of those, we try to heal naturally, as conservatively as we can. And then those last resorts of like, okay, you really do need a shoulder replacement, or you really do need these other things, then we'll jump to that. But it's been a fun process. And I actually did, for my honors thesis at Barrett Honors College, you had to do like a project to finish off your thesis. And I put myself as a test subject through a bodybuilding competition. And that's what brought me to bodybuilding in the fitness world itself. I'd always been active and stuff, but I transitioned from marathon running to competitions. And it was fun to watch the statistics that change in the process of being an endurance athlete to strength-based athlete. And ever since then, that's kind of where I found my passion of helping people in my little niche of bodybuilding, as opposed to just post-op patients or gen pop. It's very tunneled into this because of my experience within the sport.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So, and I know we were talking before we went on camera today about that physical therapists, like most professions, there are specialties within that, or focus points or areas of concentration, whatever you want to call it. So for you as a doctor of physical therapy, I assume that you had to go through certain residency in different disciplines to ultimately get your doctorate there.
Correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went through a hospital rotation, I'm sure.
Hospital, an orthopedic setting, and then I did do 2 orthopedic settings, one out of like a hospital rehab style and then an outpatient. And that was very sports specific. And then my first one was at the ICU at the Mayo Clinic. So you got to see a wide range. But once you leave a certain discipline, you just don't see the same patterns. It's not that you've learned the information, but just like anything, if you don't constantly keep refreshing on it, it's not your forefront knowledge. So if you told me to go work in the ICU now, I'd have to brush up on a lot of stuff just to stay focused, know what to look at. It's completely different patient, right? I'm watching vitals, you're watching medications, you're watching everything that's a little different than, and then if you took one of them and told them, here's a bodybuilder, I need them to be able to pose, they'd be like, you need what? Right? Unless they're in that world themselves, it's kind of a transplant. So you have to really find your little discipline niche in that world. But people can carry over. You just want them to be specialized in whatever you're trying to reach your goals in. And
based on your history then, you did I know what you said you did your thesis on, which is very interesting. So clearly this is the area that you wanted to get into.
Yes.
Okay. Would you call it more sports rehab, or would you call it most specifically to the bodybuilding sports?
I'd call it more like a sports rehab style. Yeah, definitely
because I know that you work on bodybuilders, but you also probably work on other athletes.
I do see some gen pop or football players, and it's definitely more of the active lifestyle. I'm not there. Okay, you have to do your exercises today. Please do your exercises this week. These athletes come in, they're like, what do I need to do? How do I get better? I have a sport. I have something I need to get back to. And they're very driven already because they want to get to that next level, which is a different.
I find it interesting because, I mean, when we say rehab, it kind of brings us to the thought of there's something wrong. Whereas I know in a lot of cases, and sometimes there is, people are working through something, and sometimes you're looking to optimize them, which I think is like, I would think, and you can tell us, it's almost more difficult because you're taking somebody who's already operating at such a high level and going, how do I get even just like this little bit more out of them? So I think that's got to be very different mindset. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I'll have people that have come to me that have gone and seen other practitioners, and no like dig on other practitioners or anything, but it's the other PT looked at them and they're like, well, technically you test out fine on everything, so I don't know what you want us to do with you. And they're like, but I can't hit this pose and I can't do this one thing. And you need someone to look at it and be like, oh, okay, so that twist that you need to hit in your front pose, you can't get because your thoracic rotation's too tight. You know, yes, your shoulder, all the mobility tests check out technically, but to put it all together for your specific sport has been kind of that one, the next level, right?
And I do think, especially within in the realm of PT, there's PT for recovery, for injury rehab, for surgery rehab, and then there's this other part of PT that's more optimization of making sure that your body is moving the way you want it to move, as efficiently as possible, as optimized as possible. And I think that's a distinct area from just rehab and recovery, but I don't know if that's right.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And there's been a couple of the athletes, the girls on the team, they've come in and they're like, you know, I feel a little sore, but nothing's really bothering me. We'll watch through poses and we'll be like, okay, there's like a tiny little twist in your pose. And then they'll do an exercise and they're doing that same twist in that exercise. So they're just not getting the most bang for their buck in certain activation drills or something, right? We need that glute diamond on both sides. And there's just a little missing on one side. So it's how can we fine tune these little changes so you can get the most from your training? But it's crazy because some of those girls then they'll be like, I had the biggest weight drop yesterday. It's just when the body finds itself under stress, and stress can be all different things, but if it's slightly twisted and it's trying to work and compensate all these, if you can release that stress or that inflammation and it can be at its optimized position, it's crazy what it does to the nervous system. It's like, oh, we can finally relax. You get a weight drop, you get less inflammation, your lines are popping and your digestion is better. Because if you like twist a water bottle, it doesn't allow stuff to move as well from top to bottom. So if we can untwist it, you get an easier flow. So people's digestion improves and they're just happier. And you're like, oh, wow, that little change makes such a difference to the system.
We had an athlete who came out, who visited here recently. You worked on her. And she had never had really body work at this level. And when we were posing her, we could see the muscular imbalance, especially in the back. And so as we started exploring her ADLs, her activities of daily living, she's got 2 kids. And just like Jamie had done when she had our kids, she's carrying the kids on one side. And that daily repetitive action had built in this muscular imbalance that was visible. And the explanation for why her poses were the way they were. And then she went to work with you, and I mean, I imagine it was probably similar to what people thought when they first saw Jesus.
Oh God!
You know, that it was kind of that that she just felt like
a light bulb went off.
This had unlocked everything, and that's the topic of this episode, which is the unlocking to really reach her full potential in your and it's amazing that it's not just one person doing that. It's a team of people working on that, because you will see certain things, and Kristen, your eye is among the best. We will see certain things, but it's that collaboration of allowing. It's almost like multidisciplinaries in the hospital, right? You bring in a neurologist, you bring in an orthopedist, you bring in a rheumatologist, you bring in a gastroenterologist, all to talk about a patient's care, so that we know that we're giving them the best care. And that's one of the, I think, evolutions in our approach. And you've been a game changer in that, on that team. So, I mean, you're not just team, you're family. And we're just so happy that you've been able to make the impact on the athletes. So part of this was giving you the affirmation that this athlete was just so, I mean.
Well, and this has been multiple people for sure. And as you were talking, it makes me think about like how easy it is to kind of fall into, not realize that our patterns or that our body's off, because we get so used to it. It's almost like if we were running a low-grade fever all the time, it would just feel normal. We wouldn't know that we had it anymore. Or I've had people that didn't know they had a food intolerance because they ate that food so much, they always just kind of felt crappy and didn't know why.
Yes.
And that's that light bulb moment of like, if you find it, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, like I haven't been operating it. I thought this was my full, but this isn't it.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things that I've noticed just with this team, and I'm going to call it part of family now, it's the willingness and openness to communication. So some people can be like closed-minded, their way is the only way. When you have a team like you guys, you see your clients, you see them, you see how their body responds to food, you see how they're posing weekly, and you can have communication between coaches, practitioners, and you can give the willingness to give your athlete that next level service is incredible when you have people that are willing to work together to produce that. But I think it's also sometimes because we start to become a family to those athletes, we tend to ask those next level questions. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't stop at, okay, you're training, that exercise hurts you. Okay, that's where we're stopping, and then we go from there. That carrying the kid, for example, I think a lot of people forget their daily activities, like sitting on the computer all day.
That's me.
They're scrolling, they're, walking the dog, and they only hold the leash on this one side and it's twisting. So I tend to ask uncomfortable, and sometimes I'm like, sorry, TMI, but are you going to the bathroom regularly? Because it goes beyond those. Sometimes we don't want to talk to people about that, or it's uncomfortable, but everything really does tie together. And it's because we become family and we really care, you push the limits, you have those uncomfortable conversations, you figure out stressors in their home life, because everything really does tie together.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about time as a lawyer, and asking the right question was the difference between getting the information you wanted and you had to be willing to go out, and I often was, to ask the question she knows, because I still ask those questions even though I'm not doing that work anymore. But
interrogation.
But I don't call it interrogation. I call it inquiry.
Deposition.
And and partly is I'm curious because
yes.
We had another athlete, again, an ADL person who was carrying she had tremendous development in her erectors, and it wasn't anything related to the way she was training, but she's a realtor, and so we started asking questions. Well, what do you do for that? Well, I carry a backpack. Well, how much does that backpack weigh? 60 pounds. Well, how often do you carry it? All day, every day. Mm-hmm. And so,
I wonder why.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder why your erectors are so developed the way they are. So I love that you go that. And I do think that's a differentiator between people that are in the support professions to medicine. No disrespect to doctors, but sometimes doctors get one question, one answer, and that's how they want to go. And I don't fault them. That's how they're trained, and I do think that's evolving. But I've always found PTs, PAs, nurse practitioners, and nurses to be among the best at asking those deeper questions to find out, okay, we if we're just treating a symptom and not treating the cause, then how much work are we really going to do here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's we have a little bit more time with our client, right? I got an hour usually with my patient. I can ask lots of questions. I talk to them. But when you really care to want to know them on that other level, that's where you'll find most your answers. Because people get flustered if you're like, okay, well, what's your shoulder doing? What did you do? Did you sleep on that? Okay. And then did you stop there? They're like, oh, geez, okay. But when you make it a conversation, get to know them, they feel like they can open up, and you wind up finding all your answers in that process.
That's because you're treating the person, not the symptom.
Exactly.
And I think we're going to cover that in a fusion hack later on. So a little teaser for that. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at me working in the teasers. Okay.
Well, I think I was just going to give an example of that really fast, of something I learned in school that has stuck with me very hard. They gave us an example of a professional baseball player, and he had gone to tons of physical therapists and different coaches and everything, and no one could figure out the problem. He was getting awful shoulder pain every time he threw, and everyone was like, you look fine, you're testing fine, shoulder's fine, imaging shows nothing, everything, right? He finally went to one physical therapist who watched him throw and realized he just wasn't loading on his foot the same way. So they looked at it, and he had an awful ingrown toenail. So he would stop his throw every single time he had landed, just to prevent the pain that he was having from the step. So that's when I say it's such a huge system approach that you have to look at people. You got to ask those weird questions. You have to know what's going on in their life, because if I just stop at the shoulder, I'm probably not going to find that problem of looking at the entire system of a silly ingrown toenail was causing this guy millions of dollars and doctors and everything, right? Which is crazy.
That is
but it's
such
just
a great
good example. And it's
Yeah.
really stuck with me of why we need to look at the bigger picture.
Jamie told you that I was a lawyer, and we did personal injury defense, and so I got into a lot of that, of surgeries following accidents, and oftentimes the surgery was financially motivated, and so they weren't really addressing the issue. They were addressing the symptom. Hey, we got this, so let's do this surgery and it'll fix it. And I would always be a person who came in, and that was not, they had worse symptoms after the surgery than they did before, because they had not addressed what was really the cause. And so, I had people that got unnecessary neck surgeries when actually it was a shoulder issue. Wow. And had they had that done, it was, when I say unnecessary, I'm not saying they didn't have something going on in the neck, but was it?
But they have treated it without surgery.
They spent the time on, hey, let's get the surgery because that's a bigger ticket item. Than, hey, if I send somebody to rehab and it corrects the problem, well, that's a $5,000 bill.
It's the same thing that you went through.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to jump into.
Okay, I know that was a lot of side talk.
Some side talk about me.
No, I love it. I'm glad. I'm so glad, because we learned a bunch. But I definitely wanted to jump in. Like, what types of things are you seeing most frequently, specifically with the bikini athletes, or the bodybuilding athletes in general? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of crossover. And I'd love to kind of go over like some of the things that you're seeing commonly and what's causing them, like the kind of cause and effect.
Yeah, I think some of the most common things, I walk in the door, I'm like, okay, what's bugging you? I got back pain, my glutes aren't firing, my glutes are tight, my shoulders won't open, or I have shoulder pain, right? Those are kind of the common things that run through my mind first off of what they start with. I'm like, okay, well, let's watch you pose. So I want to see them as a system now that they've said their initial injury or things that are bugging them. We'll watch them pose, and we might find some more like fine tuning, some little things from the posing. And then I'll be like, okay, so what are some examples of exercises you tend to feel this discomfort in? So then we'll go over an exercise. We'll watch them move through that exercise, or I'll have them do like a full overhead body squat type thing with the arms overhead and squat down. So I can see how the upper body plays in with the lower body and where that pain might be coming from. So for example, I had a client this last week, one of the girls, she came in kind of low back was kind of flared up and her glutes just felt really tight. And so every time she tried to pose, she's like, they keep telling me to relax my glutes and they just won't relax. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get it to calm down. So it's one of those, okay, how do we get your pelvis to be able to calm down so that you can find that kind of sitting point, right? So she was doing some poses and I was like, okay, well, I know it's not your normal side, but pose to the other side for me. And she was like, she sits there for quite a while trying to figure out how to pose to that side. And I was like, okay, so I think there's something going on. Your body's so familiar with this one way of posing that when you try to rotate to the opposite side, which you're going to have to train, and it's going to include both types of rotation, right? You can't just rotate to one side and have no mobility to the other side and then expect to get like a single leg RDL to give you the same response from one side to the other. So she's like, I already know I'm supposed to be posing to both sides. Like she knew it. It just becomes, we're short on time. We get in a habit of just practicing our one routine.
Well, plus it's a comfort zone thing.
100%.
Right?
It's very
They don't
uncomfortable
like how they
to
look
twist.
on the other side, so they don't want to do it.
We avoid the things that are hard, difficult, and we don't like the way result comes from it. But it's more of a form and function. So we started getting her opened up on the other side, getting some mobility, loosening in through the glutes, treating her low back, kind of releasing in the psoas and abs. We'd done some needling and some deep tissue work, which we'll talk some more about. But once we incorporated all that, she was like, oh, okay, there we go. And then she could get it to pose. But it's one of those, we start with a problem, we watch it pose, we watch it with the exercise, and then we go into treatment for it.
Mm-hmm. Interested in changing your life or stepping on stage? Join FitBody Fusion today.
Experience the FitBody Fusion difference with tools, knowledge, and community support to reach your healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
We guide thousands on their fitness journeys, from seasoned athletes to those who are simply seeking a healthier life.
Our expert coaches provide personalized plans and unwavering support, empowering you to thrive.
FitBody Fusion is more than just training. It's a community. We understand the challenges of solo fitness journeys, which is why we foster a supportive environment where members encourage and motivate each other.
Join the FitBody Fusion community today and unlock your full potential.
Head to fitbodyfusion.com to sign up for a free consultation.
And do it today.
And I love that you brought this one up because I do feel like this is the number one that I see. And I actually literally this morning, and I just before getting on here, I was doing a posing call with an athlete who's going to come in town and see you. So I'm very excited for this, because what I'll see is that when they hit their back pose, there's the upper glute on one of the sides you can see is completely bound. And that's when we're like, release it. And they're like, I can't, like I'm doing what I can. So, and it makes a lot of sense when you start breaking it down and realizing like they're always cranking to one side, releasing that glute on that one side where they're hitting their front pose. The other side, they're never doing that. So it's causing that imbalance, whether it be in the low back, the glute, like they're all of the above, like everything is just kind of, and I see this all the time, and I tell them pose on both sides, and then they don't do it.
And that's kind of like that's a simple version that we all have access to, right? You don't have no equipment needed. You just got to pose to both sides. That's like step one. Get mobility on both sides, right? That's no excuses on those things. And then it's, okay, how do we apply this? So when I was saying the example of the overhead squat, right? You'll have people who, when we have our arms up overhead and we squat down, they'll get this like kind of little shift as they get down to the bottom. And I'm like, did you feel that? And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, your whole hip just shifted. And it's, to me, it's obvious, but to other people, you wouldn't notice. And with your weights on your back, you wouldn't notice that like 1 inch shift. But that's making a huge difference because one glute's getting developed, that other side's not loading the same. And you're like, why is my diamond not looking the same? Especially, and I use diamond as a common term with bikini kids, how important. They're always like, diamond glutes, I got to see that tie in. And if you're not loading or sitting into one glute and it's not getting developed on the other side, that's going to be a big problem that you're trying to play catch up with.
Right.
So then you try to pose it to hide it, right? And you have these little twists and you're like, okay, we'll rotate this way and this shoulder back and spread this lat, when we could kind of find that root cause problem.
Right, because it's just going to keep getting worse too.
Exactly.
It's like if we're just compensating through posing adjustments, which is fine in the short term.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if we're not really getting to the root, that's just going to keep getting worse and worse. Because like you said, the imbalance or what's going on with the structure is then relating to the training, which is then relating to the development and then the...
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's just one example, right? With the low back and glutes. The other one's like spreading of lats. And you think for so long we've been told, you know, like pinch your shoulder blades back, step here. And so then we train and everything gets restricted and you pose to one side, one lat can spread, the other one can't, or we sit at our computers all day. And we're sitting here, and this is rotating. So our back stretch, but our pecs are super tight. And then most girls nowadays, not everyone, but a lot of people have gone on the breast augmentations, which puts more of a pull here. So we really have to find a way to get the fascia, the muscles to stretch and relax and open so that our muscles can do what they're supposed to do. So I think that's been another common thing when people say like their backs. Okay, I'm like, okay, well, let's check your shoulder mobility. Let's see where your pecs are doing. And they're like, stuck in here, right? So we're trying to get mobility in through here so that they're not always living in this forward rolled position. So when they do back, you're getting the same tipping motion. You do shoulders and you're doing this tipping motion. Everything's rolling forward and you're not getting true like shoulder activation. You're getting more grinding on your bicep tendon and upper trap development. So then people come in and they're like, I always have like headaches. My shoulders are so tight. So it's fixing those little things. And all of a sudden they can do a lat spread because they're not in this tip position. So really getting mobility from the whole system, shoulders, chest, back, things like that is what I've noticed too has really helped. And you can see that predominantly in posing. That's why I look at the girls a lot with their poses. That's like the first thing.
Oh yeah, when you're describing the traps that like so many times, and a lot of times it's like one side over the other, and it's just literally like you said, you could have them stand, hit their pose, and immediately see that imbalance. I'm curious because I know you brought up the breast augmentation as part of that, which makes total sense. I'm curious though too, like even with like a lot of women aren't training chest. So how do you think that affects some of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a tough one, right? Because once you get a breast augmentation, you're not supposed to train chest. That's like every doctor's like, you're done with it forever. There's some parts where we still need to activate the muscle because it's a counterbalance system, right? Between chest and back, you need something, it still needs to be strong to hold you up for stability. It's not like we need pecs anymore. We just need it to be stable. So it's,
But you need the muscle to have.
yeah, you still need
strength,
it to like activate a little bit. So in that, and I tell people, even doing a plank up on your hands, you're still activating your chest. It's just not taking it through full range and chest flies with heavy weights and dumbbells, things like that. You still want a little chest development. Like we just still need to activate it. Otherwise it just gets tight. And sometimes I think people think, oh, it's tight because it's too strong. Sometimes tightness happens because our body is protecting itself. So it almost goes, okay, well, this system is going to be super weak, so we're just going to fall into it to make sure that we stay safe. If we overstretch that, or if we don't overstimulate or overtrain it, that's going to be a bad thing. But sometimes tightness is a form of weakness, and it's our body telling us like, hey, we need to do something here. We're tightening down so that you don't hurt us, kind of a thing.
That totally makes sense. And that's, I'm thinking like it's even after people have surgery and they're feeling like they need to protect, they're naturally kind of doing that and then freezing themselves in that position. So as they're healing, like being able to open it back up. And then, because I was curious as your take on this, because I've always continued to do a little bit of chest activation, kind of what you're talking about, like not full on and certainly not like flat bench that's going to hit, but maybe even like a little bit more upper, and I've also seen like a lack of front delt development because women aren't working chest or upper chest. So like that creating that little bit of imbalance. So
I mean, I've got mine 2.5 years ago now, and I've always still done a little bit of chest, and it's like a high incline, lightweight. I'm more just doing it like the eccentric loading. So I'm getting it stronger in a lengthened position as opposed to like how much weight can I press, right? I just want it to be able to bear tension in a lengthened position because life is not going to tell me I can't ever push. Right. Like I'm going to have to push a door open. I'm going to have to, if I want kids, I'm going to have to put, there are things that are going to happen and I don't want to be unprepared for those movements. So still being functional in those places. Plus, if you look at it, girls who have that really pretty like top shelf, they have a little bit of tissue development in there, right? So it's a little bit of a high incline chest press. It's a high plank position. It's getting mobility. And I think that was one of the bigger things. And I'm sorry if I'm like divulging and talking about this, but even in my own experience, when I was kind of restrictive, really tight and all that stuff, it doesn't sit the same. So when you start getting some mobility, getting your chest to open up, the implants drop and they settle and they look really like pretty. It looked the way they're supposed to, but it's because I started getting more mobility, getting my chest to open up, getting my back stronger to stabilize and to hold them there because you have a new weight. So your back needs to get stronger to hold it there as opposed to just letting it fall.
Yeah. I'm glad you did because like I completely agree. And that's been my perspective on it as well. So it's cool to hear that a little bit too. Yeah. And I mean, I understand. And I hope, I'm sure listeners will realize like what we're saying is like, don't go ham, like listen to your doctor. Like obviously don't do, but just getting enough activation to where you're not completely ignoring that part of your body because everything is a balance. Like it's there's front, back, side, like, that's why we talk about only posing on one side. Anytime we only go one direction or only work one, if we only work, rear or mid delt, we never work front delt. Like, we're losing some of the balance and eventually it's going to potentially turn into an issue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also think with post-surgical instructions, people, again, because surgery's pretty significant event in your life, they can hear the doctor's admonitions and just take those as gospel, which I'm not saying they're not, but I am saying this is where the inquiry comes in. Yeah. Okay, doc, you say you don't want me doing any chest. What about this? Can I do like a high incline chest press where I'm just working with little weights because I just like to make sure I keep a little bit of strength in this upper pec? Sure, that's fine. Or no, it's not, whatever. But the point is that when you get those post-op instructions, Jamie's usually getting them for me because I'm usually under anesthesia or something. But I've been aware enough, sentient enough to hear her talk, and she'll ask those clarifying questions like, okay, you say this, but what about this? What about this? What about this? And I think that a lot of people get their post-surgical instructions and they're just like, okay, the doctor says none of this. Yeah. And that may be accurate. And it's also worth the question. So you're saying none, but what about this? What if I want to incorporate a little bit of this? And I think most surgeons are going to tell you, yeah, you're okay with that. They give the admonition because they get people who go back in and they think they can train,
100%.
Like they were before the augmentation. And there are some modifications that you have to make.
And I think going back to kind of the specialty thing we were talking about earlier, if I go see a surgeon who has no idea what I want to get back to, well, you just bought boobs, so you don't need to go train chest. Okay, technically, yes, right? Like, technically, yes, I did buy a chest, so I don't need just muscles, right? But that's their concept.
It is. If they don't understand our world.
They don't understand. And it's, you wouldn't understand something that you don't partake in per se. But I was like very specific with mine. I'm like, okay, I want to get back to heavy lifting. I want to do these things. I want to be able to do this. He was like, okay, like take it easy for a first little bit, please. Like take it some time.
Right.
But then it becomes, yes, you can do some of these things. No, you're not going to be PRing and chest exercise anymore. Like, and you need to be smart. So I'm not like telling anyone to not listen to their doctor, but being smart in the sense of if you feel a really big, deep stretch or something, you limit your range, right? You kind of have to rebuild that world again for your nervous system to process where it's at.
Right. And so I love that you went there with it because it's exactly kind of my thought was just like, if I'm looking for someone to help me optimize my performance in the gym and my bodybuilding look on stage, I'm going to go to somebody who that is the area they focus on.
Correct.
And I feel like the same as if you are, thinking about a breast augmentation, it is nice to have somebody who has worked with other athletes and understands what we do. And sometimes they don't completely, but I mean, at least if they have a general idea, I think they're going to be able to guide you a little bit better than just your general person who's coming in and buying boobs and they're like, oh, you don't need to work chest anymore.
Agreed.
Kind of thing.
And I think kind of like tying this back into the PT thing, it's just, we're talking about breast augmentations because it's really common for girls to get. Like most of us have them now in the competition world. If you don't, it's no big deal, but it is a common thing and it creates imbalances because we take time off. So then you can start to see it when we're doing some of the assessments.
There's also tissue adhesions and everything that
absolutely. Yeah. So if you think if your front, we have like fascial planes and we call them like slings where you have tension built from one side to the other, right? So you have frontal plane, posterior chain, side to side, and kind of like these oblique slings. So if you're super tight in the front and everything's pulled forward, well, now my back is elongated, everything's stretched, and it's trying to stabilize the system, right? So it's like overworking or in a protective mode. So then people sometimes will hinge and they're not using their abs, or we get these pelvic tilts or kind of a crisscross, one side relaxed and then it plays into the other. So it's really finding a balance between all of it. And so that's why we're tying it in with like the breast augmentations, just because it's so common. When we watch people pose, you can see sometimes that pull, and they say they only pose one side, right? So they're only here. Well, this side can open up. This side's really closed and bound down. Well, it creates the same in the opposite, the adverse on the posterior chain, right? So if it's stretched like this, and this is closed and this is open, well, the opposite, it's lengthened and shortened, right? So then you have this training pattern that's happening when they're doing bent over rows, when they're doing RDLs, and it's becoming this habitual kind of compensation that just keeps building.
Whatever Newton's law is, every action bears an equal and opposite reaction. It's your body has to work as levers and pulleys. It works, everything's in opposition to itself. Yes. And when you talk about this, the thing that was coming to mind, and we've offered this before, but I don't think we could, I think if we said it every episode of this show, it would not be enough about posing on both sides. And the reason for this is you're not going to go into the gym and train one side of your body. You're not going to go do yoga and train one side of your body. So the other thing I would put on this, and this is the public service announcement, is we tell athletes to train on both sides. Okay, no problem. Did you train on both sides? I did. What's the time breakdown? What do you mean time breakdown? Well, how much time did you allot to your posing overall, and then how much time did you allot to the right side versus the left side? And then you get the long pause.
Yeah.
Because, and what I have found, at least, and this is anecdotally, it's not scientific, but it's about 80-20. Yeah. So they'll practice on the one side to check the box and say, hey, I practiced on the other side.
Rotation through.
But they are not doing the same thing. And what they're missing is that posing is about as close to yoga as you're going to get. And it'd be like going into a yoga studio every day and training one side of your body.
Only twist to one side.
Or okay, I'm going to do 10 reps with the right side, and then this one rep because I need to train both sides, so I'm going to do this one rep on the left side.
Absolutely.
And the body just doesn't work that way. And so just like we're talking about the athlete that we started this episode with carrying her kids every day, you're carrying the kids right-handed every day, and I'm sure you see...
And kicking the right hip,
yeah.
the kid on the hip.
Loaded. Yeah.
And I'm sure you see dominant side variances with people. That's pretty commonplace, but now you compound that because you're doing something on one side over and over and over again. And no, the first week is not going to make a difference. The second week, okay. But when we get into weeks and months and in some cases years of this, that's a lot to undo.
Yeah. And I always tell people, as long as it took you to get into that pattern, allow yourself some time to get out of it. It's not where you're going to be like, okay, well, I did my posing to the opposite side for like a week. It's not better yet. And you're like, no, it's not, because you probably did it for years where you only did this. All right. So it's giving it a habitual pattern. Your body has to learn this new normal, right? So it has to work. You have to stretch those muscles. You have to work into it. And I tell people too, like, it's kind of uncommon to find the opposite of your back pose, right? You're really arch, and we are going to the extremes. You are in high heels. You are sticking your butt up there. You are pinching, you're spreading. You're really trying to work to highlight your assets. And
no pun intended.
Right? Yeah,
pun
right?
intended.
Yeah. So when you do that, though, it's coming out of it. You'll see girls, they get out of their shoes and they're like, oh, right? Because you're squeezing everything in your back. Everything's very compressed. So I've been telling a lot of the girls do like some cat, cow, camel things with a band, just to give that space of, okay, we're no longer in this contracted extension. We really want to start getting a little flexion. We want to get the spine to articulate. We want to get some movement. And I'll have them just do some like hands and knees, cat, cow, camel type things, just to get some spinal articulation, kind of reaching, inhale, stretch, and then exhale, really round and pushing away. And I have added in some bands and things like that so they get some feedback. That's and they're like, oh, wow, that like really helped the back pain that was building. Because we do squats, we do deadlifts. Everything's very like heavy.
Everything is spine compressive.
Everything's spine compressed, glute building, kind of that anterior pelvis. Our posing's anterior pelvis. Everything's that tip. So we're trying to get out of that position and give it space to come back to a neutral position. Sometimes we need a little extra feedback. So some of the girls will do their posing routine. I'm like, okay, well then drop down, do like 10, 15 reps with the banded cat cows. And it gives them just that relief of their body's no longer in that extended kind of frightened mode. I say frightened just because it really holds tension there sometimes. So coming out of it gives them that relief to go about the day, and they feel more comfortable and they can go into their exercises and training a little more optimal.
You said something that I wanted to go back to because I thought it was so important. You talked about, so I had this discussion with somebody else, but it was really more related to the corporate world and how one way to stop a meeting is when you're coming into a meeting and everybody's throwing out ideas and everything, to just stop and ask this following question, which is, what's the problem we're solving here? And it's amazing that Joey is solving one problem, Jane is solving another, and until you get on target with what's the problem you're solving. And I think this is the approach that you talked about, because it's like you give the example of the locked up glute. Well, that's the symptom, but that may not be the problem. The problem that we're solving may be a foot issue, it may be a knee issue, it may be a hip issue, it may be a spine issue. But until we know the problem that we're solving, the hip, the glute being locked up or the back being unable to open, that's just a symptom. Correct. And so taking that time to inquire about what's the problem we're solving here.
Yeah. So, and we've done quite a few with the clients. It's like a test, retest, right? So we get down, we watch, okay, this is what we got going on. We'll do some treatment, stand back up. Let's test it. Let's see how that's going. Okay. We're not completely there yet. Let's look, okay, now let's treat this other thing. It's, any one road track is probably not going to be. It's going to be a little curvy. Like, got to figure out, we got to undo this to get this to sit back. And then we got to come over here and release this. And it's really kind of seems like a ping pong situation. But a lot of the time the body does like boom, boom, shoulder, opposite hip, other glute, down to the foot. So we really are kind of testing and treating.
Plus everybody's moves differently.
Absolutely.
And so it is a ping pong, because what may work with Jamie may not work with me because of the different, we may have the same manifestation of whatever that issue is.
Yes.
But because of the way we move and because how our activities of daily living and all those other things, you've got to explore different options to figure out what's the right way for Jamie versus what's the right way for Greg.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think it's interesting, like talking about like the different lifestyle things, because I know for me, I'm sitting in front of a computer all day. So I'm sitting with my, my psoas and everything and my hip flex, everything's, in this position. Then I go do other things and I'm getting all this pain. So, I love that, it's kind of that combination of what's going on with the posing, what's going on in the gym, what's going on, in activities of daily living. And then you're looking at all these, it's pretty complex, really.
And it is. That's why I find it like such a fun job, because no day is the same as the day before.
Yeah.
Every day is a new puzzle, and every person comes in with their new like puzzle and story that you like have to put together, which is, if you like puzzles, it's a great job, right? It's really fun. It's fun to figure out what's going on. And then when you provide someone relief with what they've been going through, I think everyone has gone through pain at some point in time in their life. If you haven't, you are a lucky human, right? You are very blessed. Say your prayers. But most people can have empathy for that situation of when you're in pain or discomfort. To get out of that, it's such a relief, and to get back to what you love doing, right? So a competitor wants to come in, they have Olympia they're trying to get ready for, and there's something limiting them. It's such a rewarding connection for the two situations, like to provide them that relief and then for them to continue going on to what they love doing. It's just one of those, like, yeah, this is why I love doing what I love doing, right?
I can imagine. Because I mean, I know from the coaching side of things how rewarding it is when I see people. And I've seen you have that impact, so I know that like that's the passion behind it. So I know we're going to talk in our next episode and kind of break down different modalities and where they might be appropriate and things like that. But what would you say if somebody is feeling pretty good, they're in the bodybuilding world, they want to make sure that they are taking good care of their bodies? Like, what's a good way for somebody to start? And I know we'll talk about we've talked a little bit about different issues that people might be having, but this might be somebody who doesn't have anything specific. They want to just make sure they're kind of optimizing all their progress. Like, do you think like starting with once a month, every other week, like, obviously we're going to talk about, I know in finding a practitioner and things like that, but like, what do you think is a good place for this type of person? This is a competitor and they want to start kind of getting out of their comfort zone, and maybe they haven't gotten any body work before.
Yeah. A couple different answers to that. I think one of the biggest things is kind of knowing the trajectory of your plan, right? If you know you're in competition season and that's your goal down the path, you kind of want to get after it, right? You want your body to be in an optimal position down the road when you're competing. So I'll tell people, you might want to do once a month. And then as you start getting closer to your trajectory or show day, you might increase that to twice a month if you can. And then I've had people when they're getting towards some of the bigger shows like Olympia, they're coming weekly because they want their body in tip-top condition. They want everything firing. But I say,
when you even came to the Olympia,
and I
like
we're doing some, just like fine-tuning things, because it's really, the body goes through a lot, just living, right? Just day-to-day normal stuff. And then you add training, you add diet, you add stress of competition, you add stress of life. All those things really do play a role into it. But if you could start one time a month or once every 2 months even, because I know a financial commitment as well. If you do once every 2 months, you're just trying to get, okay, this stuff's starting to move. I'm starting to get some answers. I'm keeping up with my homework. And I think that's one of the big things. I'll tell clients, okay, you need to be doing these few things. And we'll get into that more too about some of the modality things, but these are some things you need to get into doing consistently before your workout so that you're primed, you're prepped, you're ready to go into your training. And then if they keep up with that, it takes less time with me to kind of undo what we've already undone, kind of a thing, right? So if we can continue to work together in a progress towards that end goal of, okay, competition's here. So like I said, 1 to 2 times a month, and then kind of more frequently as we get closer to their shows is the more optimal thing. If they're in pain, that's a little different. We're going to want to address that a little quicker. We want to get out of pain so the nervous system's not freaking out, and then they can taper off.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
And I just wanted to bring this up specifically because if people start this early, hopefully they don't get to a place where they're having
Building a foundation.
Right.
Yes.
And so I do think a lot of times we get into that mode of like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We're kind of going about our own thing. And then all of a sudden something, by the time it gets to that point where they're like, I'm in so much pain, I need to come see you. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's a whole process instead of, catching it early before it turns into that. And it could save you a lot of pain and heartache.
Yeah. And I'll use myself as an example there. Back when I was turning pro, I was so hyper-focused on my end goal of like, I don't have time to take off. I have to get to this. I have my goal. I had gotten an injury the year before, and I kind of was just like, it's going to go on the back burner because I have this thing here. If I would have done some body work during it and really made that a priority. So this is one of those like public service announcements, learn from my mistake.
Do as I say,
do
not
as
as I do.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I did. But that's 5 years ago already, and like you're in a different process of seeing how much that effect can have by waiting. Like that domino's been kicked and it's still going, and you're like, well, by the time I get there, then I'll get caught up to it. And it doesn't stop. Like your daily living, everything just keeps tracking and adding on to that. So if I would have made that a priority back then, I'm like, I probably could have saved myself some serious pain and discomfort in having to modify my training now. If I would have made it a priority back then, I'd be in a different position now, right? Of making that serious change and commitment to
it's investing in yourself. It's the
100%.
reason why we really have prioritized the prep and prime work and the workouts. I tell my personal story, which I've had about 18 orthopedic procedures, and I probably could have avoided half of those, if not all of them, if I knew now if I would have applied then what I know now, which is, and I've told the joke 1,000 times. Jamie and I would go in the gym, and I'd be through my prep work of my rolling, my myofascial release, my activation. What we're going to talk about in the Fusion Hack, the RMA. I'm not going to tell everybody what RMA stands for, but the RMA. And I would prioritize that, and I'd be a half hour in before I even touched a weight. But it made the biggest difference. I went to the gym the other day, and I had not done the dimple ball for myofascial release in my shoulders. And man, when I did that this time, I was almost in tears. It made the biggest difference in terms of opening the mobility up in my shoulders. And it wasn't
and your recovery was a lot better.
And my recovery was a lot better. It wasn't that I didn't do other stuff, but it's all adds up. And it's hard to tell people that because it's so much in the here and now, and they prioritize nutrition, they prioritize the weight training, but the weight, it's like you're putting up the walls of the house before you put the foundation down.
1,000,000%. And I kind of joke around with that with clients because they're like, I don't have time. I only have time to get my workout in. And I'm like, I promise you, your prime and prep work is just as important, if not more important than your workout. If you can get that in and like get the rest of your workout in, it will make astronomical differences later on in life in terms of I just got to get to it. I just got to get it done. It just has to get checked off, right? We live on it as like a checklist item just to get through. Yeah. And I get it, life gets busy, but like those few things, it really, in the scheme of things, is 30 minutes max, right? In 30 minutes, you see me less, so that's a time reduction. You're like, there's so many things down the road that saves by doing that.
If you took the 10 hours of recovery and you talk about 10 hours of recovery versus if you would have invested 15 minutes in prep work, that 10 hours and that 15 minutes of prep work adds up to 6 hours. You've saved a net 4 hours. Not to mention other stuff that goes with it. And I think that's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing, that I think is important, and maybe this will help drive it home for people too, though, is if they're recovering better and quicker, they can train harder, better, more frequently, get better results.
Absolutely.
So like you might speed up your results dramatically by helping with your recovery.
Yeah. And it was so funny. I was joking with a friend the other day. We're like, our mobility prime and prep work is longer than our workouts now. Like we spend more time doing that, but it's crazy how much but it is funny how when your body feels like it's in the right spot, your inflammation, I'm like, I don't have to push as heavy weights. I find better mind muscle connection. I'm getting better results. And you're like,
right.
I only would have known this.
If the results are better, who cares?
Killing myself 7 days a week, trying to push as hard as I could. And I'm like, my body just would have been moving in the right pattern. I would have.
That's the piece that I don't think people get with the prep and prime work.
Yeah.
Is that it's not just to mobilize. It's not just to release. It is to create that neuromuscular connection between your brain and that muscle group. It's almost like blowing out your pipes or clearing your gutters before a rainfall. If my gutters are all filled with leaves, that water is going to accumulate there. But if I clear out that gutter, then the path for the water to go is just clear. And so that prep work is so much more is about so much more, that because when we talk mind muscle connection, it's not just a word we're putting out there. Mm-hmm. It means that you are feeling that muscle, that contraction, that lengthening, that contractile phase of each muscle, but you have to prep your body to get in that stage. Because if you just walk into the gym and you start throwing around weights, man, your mind might be thinking about the stock market or your kids that need to go to soccer that day, or all the other priorities that you have, but you have not blown out the pipe, so there's just not that same connection.
Honestly, that's one of the best analogies I've heard with it. That works perfect.
Yep.
Then we should drop the mic at that.
I know. I was going to say this was perfect timing. I feel like we're going to roll right in. So we do have our fusion hacks that we're going to be doing in our next episode. We have a lot more we're going to be talking about. So hopefully this has been really illuminating, and watch for the rest of them. But before we go, we need your checkout word.
I'm feeling much more relaxed. I'm feeling like family having a conversation, and this has been so much fun.
Good. Good.
This has been really fun.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Good. And tell people how to contact you, Kristen.
Yeah. The best way to contact me is through my Instagram. So it's just my personal name, Kristen Bennett _IFBB Pro. And you can just DM me, ask me questions, and then we can kind of talk about having a potential of, if people want consults, you guys can reach out to me, and we can figure out a system with that. So you can contact me, and we can set up kind of a body analysis, how we can talk with your coaches that you currently have right now, and how to sync the two up.
Right. So even if you're not in Arizona. So if you're in Arizona, then certainly that's great.
Reach out to me here.
To be able to do the consult, because we're going to talk a little bit more about this on some of our episodes, but I know I have a lot of people do reach out to me that are having a hard time finding somebody near them. And I think having a resource to guide them to, even if it's to know the right questions to ask and that kind of thing, can be really helpful.
Absolutely.
And I will say, and a couple housekeeping details. One, Kristen.
Yep.
And Bennett.
Yep.
Two N's, two T's. Okay,
yep.
Good. And two E's, actually.
Yes.
And then the second thing I'm going to just say from a housekeeping measure is Kristen is one of the most gracious and giving and generous people that we have in our family, for sure. Your legendary status, because I hear about it all the time. Okay. Oh, Kristen's this. It's like the second coming. So, all right. That's my second Jesus analogy today. But you are all of that. If you reach out to Kristen, please compensate her for her time, because she may not even ask for it, but her time is valuable, and she has got, a little bit of money spent to have her guide you that's like investing something in the stock market. Your return on investment is going to be huge. Yeah. I just don't want you to be set up, because I know how giving you are. Please compensate her for her time. Okay. So I'm just going to say that out.
Well, we appreciate
that way you got to stick to it.
Yeah. We appreciate you a lot. Thank you for being here and sharing all of this. It means a lot. And, I'm excited because I get my session with you tomorrow.
So I'm excited. No, honestly, I'm very honored that you guys invited me to do this. It's been so fun working with the team and getting to know the girls and realizing this is a true family, and you guys care so deeply about every one of the athletes. It's a crazy experience that I've worked with tons of teams, tons of athletes. This is top tier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
it's
you.
really fun.
All right. Go ahead, babe.
The 3 B's.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to each other.
I'm not talking to the microphone.
Wait, be good to start over again, because we missed the collaboration on the last one.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to each other and
be safe.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBodyFusion.